Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another game review of RPGs with my friend Lex in the top right corner of the screen. We're gonna talk about The Final Girl today. Game read through with friend Lex Mandrake in the top right corner. Greetings and salutations, people of the internet. My name is Jordan with a silent PH in the middle, and up there in the top right corner is my friend Lex. Author, philanthropist, playboy, running around the world, doing all sorts of fancy things. So, I hear he actually took that photo of the dinosaur behind him. He's that traveled, ladies and gentlemen. So
definitely not a childhood poster with dinosaur facts on it that I found and framed.
So good. Today we're going to talk about an RPG that I have brought to the table, and this is it's called The Final Girl. This is from 2012.
Hey, Ted, where the hell's corkscrew?
Another game from
2012. Lex reminded me.
Wow.
And this art apparently is from 2011, is what it says on the very front cover.
Wow.
I found this game intriguing because when I first got into RPGs, it was around 2014, I think. And I didn't really know that there were non-D&D RPGs out there. I guess I kind of did, but at the same time, I'm I don't know. And my friend, who is a horror buff, kind of pointed me in this direction, and I was like, oh, this is free. I'll totally grab it. And I ended up grabbing it and printing it out and read it, and I just thought the idea was really cool. So as Lex and I were talking about, games we should review, this one's kind of out of left field, because it's not really OSR, and it's not really, the regular type of stuff that I feel like we would cover, but maybe we'll cover all genres of RPGs. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think indie games in general, and this strikes me as a minimalist story game.
Yes, and I think that's why I'm drawn to it and why I thought it would be a good fit for this show. So we're going to hop into The Final Girl. I'm going to kind of talk about, Lex and I are both going to talk about it, but we're going to talk about the game itself, and it's really simple, and I'm going to point out that it's this is 17 pages, but it's actually I'm in the, I've got the spreadsheets open. So it's actually 28 pages? And this should be 5 tops. Unless they're adding a whole bunch of extra random tables, which I wish they would, this should be 5 tops. But the idea of this is you have, a dungeon master, so to speak, a game master with 5 friends, and you each create 1 to 2 characters in a horror movie. And you take a kind of a sentence to make them, but not a clever sentence. I'm trying to find the idea of it. You do...
It is their most obvious character trait.
Yes.
So let me see. Now I need
to
find
name,
examples, but...
a name, the adjective noun. So
yes.
It says Rex, the guy who can't stop talking about his muscles, or Brock, the arrogant athlete is more what we should do. Wallace, the gruff janitor. And I like this because you can use a bunch of random names. That's fine. You could also play off of stereotypes, which I feel people who are introduced to RPGs, and I know this from playing Kids on Bikes, which is a game that I really enjoy, where they also heavily say, let's play on the 80s stereotype teen comedy movie or teen horror movie or something. So you have the jock and the nerd and this, and a lot of people at the table kind of know how to play those. So after you create 10 of these, you're going to create these weird scenes that basically you guys are telling a story about... or you're telling a story to create a horror movie. And I think if you're fans of horror movies, this might come relatively easy, but I was going to ask you, Lex, who is a fan of horror movies? Do you think that creating these scenes would, I don't know, would creating these scenes be easy from what you've read, or not knowing how to play RPGs, would this be more confusing?
No, I don't think you need to know how to play RPGs for this at all. I don't think you need to have any kind of experience, especially once we get into the rules. You just need to have some sort of understanding of the slasher genre, which, I mean, if in case you didn't get it from the name of the game, that's what this is trying to emulate. And I think it does it pretty well. I think the scenes build that up in a very, again, like minimal but pretty solid way. I think it falls apart when you get a little farther into gameplay, right. But it's cool. It's very, very easy. This is the kind of game you can play with friends, like around a campfire, without too much trouble. And all you need for it in terms of materials are just some index cards that you're going to write these characters down on, the pencils to do that, and a deck of playing cards.
And I think that's another reason I was drawn to this, is I like the idea of an RPG that doesn't utilize dice for some reason. Mm-hmm. Like, that was really cool to me. So after we create our 10 characters, we're going to create friendships or relationships. And those can be friendships, which is like basically like a good thing. Rivalry, which is I don't like that other person. And then screwing, which is, well, it leans both ways. So there's some problems with this, but we'll go with it. So in a scene, if you have a friend can come and help you. And friendship goes both ways. So I can't be someone's friend or my character can't be someone's friend. And then that friend is actually like a rival back. So we're both friends. Like, friendship is a two-way street. Rivalry is the same way, and screwing is the same way. So with friendship, you can assist someone to help them. With rivalry, you can sabotage that character. And screwing, you can either help them or sabotage them, is the idea.
Just like in real life.
Like in real life. So after you have done that, you establish the relationship between this. Then you start creating these scenes. There's an introductory scene. It kind of comes into, there's a first blood scene where somebody dies. The game master is the killer. That's kind of the whole point. And they establish how people are going to die, or they narrate the death, which I thought was interesting because specifically it says that the characters are not owned by anyone at the table. So even though I didn't make a character, somebody at the other table could play my character or something.
Well, here, Jordan, I'm going to correct you real quick.
Oh, please do.
Unless I have misread, my reading of this book was actually that there isn't a game master. That whoever is the killer rotates around the table, as it were, and that person gets to narrate what the killer's doing and who is getting killed when it is their scene to be the killer. But yeah, it's very, very collaborative storytelling in terms of how it's set up. So there isn't anyone who's dictating any of the sort of structure or plot. You're just taking turns figuring that out. And anybody, like, I think there's stuff in the rules about how, like, if a character says they go and hide in a fridge, then guess what? There's a fridge there, and they're going to go and hide in it. There's no greater authority who's saying, well, there isn't one in this. That wouldn't be in this scene, but there would be, a cabinet or something like that. Like, nope, it's a yes-and game.
Which I guess you have to really play with people who are going to play with you. Because there's always that person that's like, I run to the UFO. I was secretly an alien the whole time, which I would find fun. But I know a lot of people at the table would be like, that's not what can happen.
When you're creating something out of nothing, the first rule is to agree.
A standard scene is the person who is the active killer, because it goes around a circle. They establish a scene. The players choose characters.
The killer's picking the victim, then they're flipping over a card, and then the potential victims, the characters, are drawing cards equal to their relationships that they have. So it's like they get one for being them, and then for every relationship they get to draw another card, and then they have to try to put down a card that is higher in value than whatever the killer has put down. And then this is where the relationships come into play. So if someone is friends with that character, they can take one of the cards they have in their hand and add it to the victim's score, so they can try to get rid of the get away, escape Jason.
And then you basically just keep doing that. Everyone's still at the table picking random characters and playing until you have the one survivor, and that is the final girl. And I guess I should spotlight that if you don't know from the horror genre, the final girl it was established in some kind of psychology paper, I want to say, where now there are all kinds of movies about it. There's actually a movie called The Final Girl, which is a fun little indie horror movie about horror movies.
In the foreword to this book, the author talks about how they did not like how it was always very obvious from watching a slasher film who the final girl was going to be, because it's usually the main character. Like, Jamie Lee is going to be the one who's going to live through the end of Halloween when you're watching it, or at least you're fairly certain. So the idea with this game is because everyone's theoretically swapping characters so often, and, whether you die is based off the draw of a card, stuff like that, whoever is going to end up being the survivor is pretty random, or can potentially be pretty random. So you're going to not have that very formulaic final girl scenario.
And then if you are a survivor of a scene, I'm rereading this. I feel bad. I thought I knew this as well as I did.
Yes.
Lex knows it way better. You get survivor points on your card, and those survivor points kick in later for another scene that you can then use a survivor point to discard a card and draw a new one to try and survive again.
Get a better hand so that you're going to be able to defend yourself against the killer better. I actually love that mechanic. I thought that was very, very clever.
Yeah, and then the final scene is the confrontation with the killer, and the number of characters is equal to or fewer than the non-killer players in the scene. So if I'm a killer playing with 4 other players, if I'm down to me and 4 players, then it's like this is it. Who's going to survive?
Yeah, you're effectively just going through scenes because the killer can only attempt to kill each other player once during a scene. So you're just going through scenes until there are few enough people left that you can only do one scene, and then that's the last scene, which, okay, I guess that's how it would work.
And then you keep going until there's one character left to confront the killer. And whoever has the most dead character cards in front of them gets to narrate how the final confrontation with the killer plays out. Are they defeated? Do they survive? Do they wake up and it was all a dream? And the guy from Dallas is actually in the shower. We don't know.
There we go.
We don't know.
Dallas, not a slasher.
It could be.
It should have been, really. Oh, yeah, no, I think in certain ways it captures the genre pretty well. They give some lists of adventure generation stuff.
There's horror tables, and which uses the deck of cards, so you can pull a couple of them, and they're fun. I actually wish that there were more of these in the game. But we'll get to that in a little bit, I guess. But a werewolf is stalking people through a foggy city, or a bioweapon parasite infects people and turns them into killers. 90% of these are all from existing franchises and movies. Yeah.
So I like how one of them is just Dracula. And I'm like, yep, that's all you need to say.
I love it.
I was gonna say, so you brought this game to the table because you just thought it was neat. I think I agree that it's very easy to get into. It captured the genre pretty well, and I think that leaves a lot to like about it. But I think one of the main things that this doesn't do very well. To me, there's 2 things this doesn't do very well. Right. The first thing is that a lot of slasher movies and horror movies in general, but I think slasher specifically, which is obviously the core of this game, is the characters are trying to defeat the bad guy, not necessarily kill them, because in a lot of slasher movies you can't do that. In the Halloween franchise, they are trying to kill Michael. That never works out for them because he's a force of nature, effectively. But in the Jason movies, especially post Jason 6, they're trying to put him back to rest.
But Nightmare on Elm Street, if we can figure out how to, banish Freddy or appease his soul in some way, then he won't be doing this.
Yeah, and that's such a big part of those movies. Or even back in Alien, right, which I think is another great example of a proto version of this kind of movie. She's trying to kill the alien or figure out how to escape the alien, and that's pretty much what she's doing the whole movie. She even blows up her freaking spaceship, and it doesn't work. There's no mechanic for that, and that's what I would have liked to see when you're in later scenes of players are trying to accumulate points or something to try and figure out how to put a stop to the killer. The other big problem I have with the game, and there's just no getting around it. You read this game in the screwing, as we mentioned, is a major character interaction, and this game gives lots of gameplay examples, and none of them feature the screwing mechanics. So they literally drop like, hey, there's sex in this game. We're not going to tell you how to handle it. We're not going to give any kind of safety tools, because this is 2012. I get that safety tools aren't a common thing yet, but then they also just avoid talking about it in the gameplay examples. And I'm like, no, you can't just drop that in there and then not give people the tools to safely play with that, because you're asking for problems. You're just asking for them.
I think I want to like this game more than it's actually amazing. Like, maybe I just like the idea of it. And that's coming from when I discovered this game. I had a bunch of like horror movie enthusiasts. I've got a lot of like movie friends in town, and I thought this is that really cool idea of, I don't necessarily need the rule book when I'm out camping, but if somebody has a deck of cards and we have like some random slips of paper, we could write up some characters and play this. And I like the idea of it a lot, because it is very simple. Although I agree that it would be more fun if there were more, and it doesn't have to be that complex, but just like a goal in some way that's more than I get to narrate how the movie ends. And if it's collective storytelling, me winning how to narrate the ending isn't really fun. It should be a collective story that we're all telling together in a way. And I feel like everyone in the group would kind of know, like, oh no, that's like the best way for it to end. Like, it should totally be Sophie who kills him with the sofa. I mean, her name's Sophie. Like, that's awesome. This is so wordy. Like, I remember going through it. This is the problems that I have with it, is like the introduction is all about like why I wrote this, and like, let's talk about this. And then I don't know, it really needs to be like 5 pages. I kind of want them to just get to the point and tell me like, what do I do to play? And then afterwards, have examples of play. And I think the other thing that I don't, or I guess that I don't really like, you were talking about like, it really needs like an X card thing, or you have to, because you can't just do this nowadays. Like, you can't just be like, hey guys, let's bring up murder, let's bring up sex, and like, I mean, and that's okay. And it's like, no, even because even if everyone at the table says it's okay, it's not, because there's going to be that one person who's like, I didn't know that this was going to affect me. And it's not even about like the really obvious terrible things. Like, I've been in games where I was talking about a spider, like a giant spider, and someone at the table was like, I have a thing with spiders, can we please move on? That's not me being an awful person. That's just not me understanding. But if we have those X card mechanics in here, and this is a game that clearly needs it, because it's already dancing on those, or it's tiptoeing on that line already. So.
Oh, sure. I mean, like I think I was talking to you earlier about this, but even if you took sexual intercourse out of this game, you would still want an X card system, because you're talking about slasher movies, which means you're dealing with horror and like brutal murders, like as a main core tenet of your game. And we also keep saying like, oh, this was made in the past. It was made in 2012. It wasn't made that long ago.
Yeah, it's
you
not
really
like it's a 1992
better.
game or something where they didn't understand. It's weird. And so it kind of comes back like, why did Jordan choose this game when I have so many kind of like negative things about it? And I guess I want to say like, this opened my eyes that RPGs or storytelling games in general, you don't necessarily have to have a lot of the like a vast understanding of the rules and like this. And coming from a theater background, this is just a really fun game of improv, where we're using cards to kind of settle that debate between players. And I thought that this was just a really unique and cool thing. And I like that it uses cards cards over dice, because everyone seems to have a deck of cards. But back in 2012, I didn't know that many people who had dice. So if you were going to play this, how would you approach it, Mr. Lex?
Oh, I mean, I'd add the X card system in 100%. I would also try and add some kind of mechanic for like clue finding or some sort of thing like that. So then with the final scene, you can, instead of just being a resolution of who lives, it's a resolution of like, do you defeat the monster or do they just kill everybody, and then that's the end. I also have this great vision of like, as characters die, you take the index cards they're written on and throw them into the campfire because they're dead. Ooh, be good. So yeah, that's what I would do with this game, as long as the people I'm playing with just have an understanding of slasher movies, which most people do. It's not that difficult. So The Final Girl, I would definitely recommend this game to people who really like the slasher genre and to people who are either new to games themselves or really want to introduce a friend to a very light RPG, right?
Yeah.
Or if you have theater friends who you want to introduce to RPGs.
For sure. Theater friends or good movie friends. It's really awesome.
Yes.
So this is on DriveThruRPG. I've looked other places. I think it's only on DriveThruRPG. And it has a suggested price of $8.
I have one final thought about this game, and
Yes.
you can like roll credits or something while I'm complaining about this, but my God, the appendix selected films in this.
I want to go. Let's go through this. Okay. Alien vs. Predator 2. Awful.
Bad. That
Really bad.
Don't look to that for inspiration for this game,
Really
please. These are alphabetical, by the way.
Yes. Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Verdon. Fantastic movie.
Good. Also, I'll point out, Alien vs. Predator is on this list, but Alien is not on this list. What? Okay. Black Christmas, 1974. Fantastic edition.
I should
really,
watch
really. Cabin Fever, 2002. Also good. Dawn of the Dead, 2004. I saw Dawn of the Dead and I thought, oh yeah, of course. Dawn of the Dead, 1985. Fantastic. 2004.
Yeah.
The Zack Snyder remake where we got running zombies.
Freddy vs. Jason was one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Please don't.
It's good camp.
I mean, yeah.
Not like, maybe not the first thing you want to look at.
Maybe the original Friday the 13th? I don't know why we have to go to the 2009 version.
I can't believe that he put the 2009 version and not the it makes me want to scream. Dusk Till Dawn? Sure. The Mist, 2007. Fantastic movie. It could work for this. It's not really a slasher, though. My Bloody Valentine, 2009. Again, the original one. Cite the one that people care about, not the remake. The original Nightmare on Elm Street? Sure. Okay. Cool. You cited the original one and not the remake. I appreciate that. Predator? Okay. Predator, not a horror movie? It's suspenseful, and it kind of works.
Predator is really a movie about man's triumph over nature.
A third of these movies are very good suggestions, and 2/3 of them range from to, oh my God, that's an awful suggestion. Please don't use that movie.
All right, tune in next week where we talk about Lex's and Jordan's favorite movies, and we're just going to go on and on about our movie podcast that's going to start soon. That's The Final Girls. It's free, $8 suggested price. Anything else before we leave that you want to get really upset about?
I've said everything I'm going to say about that appendix. I'm done.
It's done. Thank you guys so much for watching. This was a lot of fun. We're going to keep making these. We'll see you guys next time in the future.